Have you ever wondered how massive globe-spanning applications, think Netflix or Google Search, run so incredibly smoothly? Well, you've come to the right place. We're going to break down the amazing technology that really powers the modern internet, Kubernetes. And we're going to do it using an analogy that makes it all click: a giant, automated digital shipping yard. Before the 1950s, loading a ship was just chaos. But then this one simple idea came along: the standardized shipping container. And suddenly, you could pack anything into this one box, and that same box would fit on any truck, any train, or any ship anywhere on Earth. Well, software had a very similar revolution, and it all started with its own version of that standardized box. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the big picture idea, this digital shipping revolution. Then we'll zoom in on the basic building block, the container. From there, we'll build our way up from pods to clusters, see how it's all kept organized, and finally, figure out how the whole thing connects to the outside world. Sound good? Let's jump in. Okay, first things first, let's talk about the main event. What exactly is this system that's acting like the foreman of our entire digital shipping yard? So Kubernetes is basically the master orchestrator. It's the super smart brain that tells all of our digital shipping containers where they need to go, how many of them we need at any given moment, and what to do if one of them gets, damaged. It handles all the heavy lifting, the scaling, the networking, the management. And here's a little pro tip for you. You'll often see it written as K8s, just K, the number 8, and S. Why? Because there are 8 letters between the K and the S. It's just a cool shorthand everyone uses. So before we can even think about managing anything, we have to understand the thing we're actually managing. And that brings us to the absolute most fundamental piece of this entire puzzle. This right here is our digital shipping container. So imagine you've built an application. Instead of just shipping the code, you package it up with literally everything it could possibly need to run. All the libraries, the system tools, the configuration files, the whole shebang. This package is totally self-contained and isolated. And the result? It will run the exact same way on your laptop as it does on a test server or in a massive cloud data center. No more of those, but it worked on my machine, headaches. Okay, so we've got our containers all packaged up and ready to go. Now, where do we put them? This is where the Kubernetes structure really starts to take shape. Let's build our shipping yard from the ground up, starting with the smallest possible piece. In the world of Kubernetes, you don't actually run a container directly. You run it inside something called a pod. Now, a pod is the smallest thing you can deploy, and you can think of it as a little protective wrapper around your container. But here's the absolute magic, the real superpower. If your container crashes for any reason, the pod doesn't even blink. It just restarts it automatically. This self-healing ability is a total game changer. And this visual just lays it out perfectly. You can see the containers sitting nice and snug right inside their pods. A pod can hold just one container, or it can hold a few that need to work really closely together. They are the true, fundamental building blocks for our application. Okay, so we've got pods, but where do the pods actually live? Well, they live on something called a node. A node is really just a worker machine. This could be a huge physical server sitting in a data center, or it could be a virtual machine running in the cloud. Its entire job, its whole purpose in life, is to provide the horsepower to run our pods. Let's go back to our diagram for a second. Now we can see the next layer of the picture. We have our pods with the containers inside, and they get placed onto a node. So in our analogy, the node is the cargo ship or the freight train. It's the vehicle that's actually carrying all of our precious containerized cargo. Now, one node is pretty useful, but modern applications need a lot more power and, more importantly, reliability. And that's why we group a bunch of nodes together into what we call a cluster. A cluster is the complete set of all our worker machines, all managed by Kubernetes as one single cohesive unit. This is our entire shipping yard. And there it is, the whole picture. We've got our cluster, which is made up of multiple nodes. Each one of those nodes is running a bunch of pods, and inside each pod, we've got our containers. This layered structure is what gives us incredible scale and resilience. I mean, if one node completely fails, Kubernetes just moves its pods over to a healthy node. The fleet just keeps on sailing. So now we've got this massive cluster, this huge digital shipping yard, but with potentially hundreds, maybe thousands of containers all running at once. How do you keep from getting totally lost? How do you stop different teams from tripping all over each other's work? The answer is brilliant. namespaces. A namespace is just a way to create these logical partitions right inside your cluster. You can literally think of it like putting up virtual fences within your shipping yard. You say, okay, this area is for the database team, and that section over there is for the monitoring team, and this one here is for the web developers. They can all work in the same cluster without ever interfering with one another. This slide just shows it perfectly. We've got one big cluster, but inside we've carved out these separate spaces, namespace A, B, and C. Each namespace gets its own set of pods and services. It's just a really powerful way to bring a whole lot of order to the potential chaos of a big system. All right, our application is packaged up, it's running in pods, on nodes, inside a cluster, and it's all nicely organized into namespaces. But there's a huge piece missing, isn't there? How does anybody actually use it? How does traffic from the internet find its way to the right container? See, here's the tricky part. Pods are designed to be temporary. They can be destroyed and recreated by Kubernetes at any time. And when they come back, they get a brand new IP address. So you can't rely on talking to a pod directly. The solution is called a service. A service provides a single, stable IP address that sits right in front of a group of pods. When a request comes in, the service just intelligently forwards it to one of the healthy pods behind it. It's like a permanent front door for a constantly changing back room. And Kubernetes actually gives you a few different flavors of service to choose from. This diagram shows the main types, and each one is for a slightly different job, whether you just need to connect things inside the cluster or, like with a load balancer, open up a reliable connection to the entire internet. So if a service is the door to a single group of pods, what's the main gate to the entire shipping yard? Well, that would be Ingress. Ingress is the master traffic controller for every single request coming from the outside world. It's basically a set of smart rules that says, hey, if a request comes in for app.com/video, send it to the video service. But if it's for app.com/chat, then send it over to the chat service. This flowchart makes it crystal clear. You've got all these different requests coming in, from a web app, a mobile app, whatever. They all hit the Ingress controller first. The Ingress then looks at its rulebook and acts like a traffic cop, directing every single request to exactly the right internal service, which then finds the right pod to handle it. It's the one central entry point for your entire cluster. All right, time for a quick lightning round of a few other terms you're going to hear all the time. A config map? That just holds your application's configuration, like a database URL. Secrets? As the name implies, that's for sensitive stuff like passwords and API keys. A volume is how you give your containers a persistent place to store data. And finally, kubectl, that's the command line tool. It's your magic wand for talking to the cluster and telling it what to do. So here's the really crucial takeaway. When you put all of these pieces together, the pods, the nodes, the services, the ingress, you get something much, much bigger than the sum of its parts. You get a system that completely abstracts away the underlying machines. You no longer have to care which specific server your code is running on. You just tell the cluster your desired state, and it makes it happen. That's why people say Kubernetes is the operating system for the cloud. And that really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. The standardized shipping container completely revolutionized global trade and made our modern supply chain possible. So as Kubernetes makes deploying and managing incredibly complex software as efficient and reliable as a global shipping fleet, you have to wonder, what new services, what new ideas, and what new ways of connecting the entire world will it unlock next?